So it begins. My name is Joseph Abel. About 5 or 6 years ago, I became homeless. I suffered rejection from my family. I suffered before in my childhood and into my early adult life with very severe poverty. I suffered from various forms of mental illness, loneliness, health issues, and virtually all of those things are now gone. I live at the top of a high-rise in downtown Los Angeles. I have a super cute puppy, which, let me go get him. Here's the little man. He's a little baby. So I have a super cute dog. I am financially stable. I've run a successful company for a number of years, and I've done really well at all of those things. I have great friends. I'm in the best shape and health of my life. Like, if you go through a list of everything about me, it's like everything's great. And I'm not saying that because I want to spend this video like flexing on people. I'm saying that because it's astonishing to me knowing where I came from and what used to be my life. I think the main thing that I want to impress upon people is that the worst things that have ever happened to me are the best things that have ever happened to me. So I was born in the middle of nowhere in New York with virtually no socialization, a family that was very secluded and somewhat religious. I moved to Buffalo, New York when I was 3 or 4 and had a few couple happy years of childhood before my father tragically passed away in a car accident one evening. We moved from Buffalo, New York to the Nashville, Tennessee area and got involved in this religious organization. The religious organization was run by basically one guy. And there were all these rules for how we were supposed to behave and dress and live, and rules for who we could hang out with and who we could date, and almost every aspect of our life was in some way controlled or regulated by this cult that more or less said we were the only people that were going to be going to heaven. Maybe there's a few other smatterings, but virtually every other religious organization, including people that were Christians, were going straight to hell. I was homeschooled K through 12, so I didn't have a whole lot of friends that were outside of my community, but that was my upbringing. It had just been a lot repeatedly, and there was like nothing good was happening in my life. I picked up soccer. I got a concussion in a game of Twister, true story, that forced me to retire from soccer and pursue something else. And I pursued academic speech and debate. The cult that I was in geared me towards speech and debate because they were like, oh, this is a great way for him to become a pastor someday. And this culminated in me taking speech and debate very seriously and getting quite good at it. In my second year, I won the National Speech and Debate Championship for my league in front of like 1,000 people. I won a scholarship to some random online school, but who cares? It was a scholarship. It was a big deal. And my church responded by asking me to preach a sermon on Sunday morning, which I did. One of the things, though, that my church didn't seem to realize was that doing speech and debate for a long period of time will make you sort of question your beliefs. Like it'll make you sort of question stuff. So as I started to question and I got ready for the sermon, I decided to preach a sermon on Sunday morning about why I thought my church was wrong. And it wasn't like, this like big gung-ho, like, oh, you guys are all idiots. Like, it wasn't like that. It was basically a sermon on how the message that we were bringing to the table was driving people away from the church and was not in line with what Jesus tried to represent himself. Like this idea that everyone's going to burn forever and we shouldn't hang out with Baptists. Like, there's just something deeply wrong with that, I argued. Church didn't react well. Was very angry after the sermon, ended up sending multiple men from other congregations to my house over a 4-month period trying to get my prodigal ass back on the straight and narrow. And this culminated in an intervention where 3 men from the church and my family popped together in my home unannounced and sort of barricaded me in the home and verbally harassed me for hours on end and gave me an ultimatum to either recant the sermon that I gave or be kicked out of the church for good. I chose the latter option. I wasn't going to let the thoughts in my head be dictated by someone else's beliefs. And the more I would discuss with these people and work, these are people that I once respected, the more I saw that their ideas were just bullshit. Like they were just brainwashed and irrational. And I knew that I had to, in some sense, escape. My family sided with my church. And for reasons that are sort of complicated, I had no other choice but to leave my home. It was either going to be homelessness or I was going to risk being sent away against my will forcefully to a random home of some other church member in a different state in the middle of nowhere without any financial resources to escape or take care of myself. And I was not going to allow my life to end that way, to be forever changed by that. So I left and I became homeless. So now we're adding homelessness to the list of things that have all gone wrong. Surviving was not easy. I couch surfed for a while at different places. I slept in my car, and I had a small amount of money left over from my dad's passing that I could use to sort of prop myself up, but I didn't really have a place for a bit. Eventually though, one of my friends took me in and I stayed there. And I made the decision to do speech and debate one more year. I did speech and debate one more year. I won nationals a second time in a row, which was an incredible accomplishment, and decided to use that success to start a speech and debate coaching company. Now, at this point, the momentum of my life has started to shift a bit. Everything has sucked. I've lost my dad. I've lost all of my relationships with my family and my church. My worldview has completely changed and needs to be restructured. And I'm wondering what's going to become of my life? What am I going to do with all of this trauma? How am I going to make something good out of it? Now, the rest of the story is this. I started that speech and debate coaching company, and over the next 3 years grew it to the top of the industry. Became the most successful speech and debate coaching company in our leagues, training national champions left and right, winning accolades left and right, and just beating out our competitors. As I started that company, I decided to move to Dallas, Texas to go to school. But my church, my family, my old life was all gone, and I got to reset, which was incredibly powerful. I cannot tell you how good it was to be able to just start all of that over again. The money that I made from my company allowed me to get my first apartment and end my homelessness. I then used those funds to pay for the rest of my education on my own without any loans. What else happened here? Oh, I got in great shape. I started working out a bunch. I started getting super healthy and invested. I started forming good friendships. One of my close friends that I met in undergrad, along with a couple of other friends, encouraged me to do law school. So I took the LSAT, I got a good score, I applied to law school, and I got accepted into USC Gould School of Law as their #1 applicant and won the Rothman Scholarship, which is this scholarship that's they give to one lucky person. There's always luck, and luck is in everything, right? But I got the scholarship, and the scholarship basically gave me a full ride to law school, so everything was covered. Gave me a living stipend, and gave me a guaranteed internship at one of the best law firms in the world. Now, after that, what happened after that? The story gets crazier. So after I start law school, I make TikToks, and one of my friends, the same friend that encouraged me to go to law school, told me to tell the story about my life and what happened to me. And so I did. I told it on TikTok, and I held my phone just right here, and I just told the story of my life, and was this is what happened to me. I used to be homeless, and now I live here in this gorgeous apartment. And I told it over a 5-part video series, and it went viral. And it got covered by a USA Today article. From nowhere, there were millions of people that were drawn to this story and that were oh my God, this is amazing. I took that momentum and built a big social media following. I got into cooking. I shared a recipe that, please correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I can tell, the recipe that I made in March last year is the most popular vegetable bowl recipe on TikTok, called Scholar Bowls. I stand today with, I think roughly 750,000 followers at the time of filming, just a little bit under that. A lot of successful brand deals and money made from this. And this promise of a career in law and on social media it's just so exciting. Everything is going great. And my life isn't perfect. I still have things I'm working on and things I'd like to be better, but life is pretty damn great. And that's where I am now, So it's a lot of history. With all these facts about my life and what's happened to me, what I want to talk about is how can you process the shitty things that have happened in your life to make yourself a stronger person. So a couple of observations here. The first observation is you will never be the same person that you were. So many people are trying to get back to the version of themselves that they were before. They sort of restore a version of themselves that used to exist. You have to let go of that. You will never be the same person that you were when you go through a deeply traumatic experience because of how it changes you. I remember at my dad's funeral, my grandfather, who was 98 at the time, came up to me and was either the fire consumes you or you consume the fire. But he's the survivors are never average. You're never going to be mediocre. The one thing that we can say about you, as uncertain as life is you are never going to be a normal person with mediocre interests and achievements. You are either going to be exceptional, you're going to be incredible at what you do, or you're going to crack under pressure and you're going to flop. You're going to let the weight of this tragedy break you and make you worse. Or you're going to be an exceptional achiever, someone that outshines everything. So that's the first thing, is recognize that any sort of traumatic experience is going to change you irreparably, and not being afraid of that. A big part of this is don't recover, evolve. You don't want to be focused on restoring an older version of you. Because even the traumatic experience, as bad as that is, even the traumatic experience has something new to teach you and to offer you. Now, this is different from saying trauma is awesome, like heap it on, baby, like I just want as much traumatic experience as possible. No, what I'm saying is that I think what's often overlooked is that trauma presents an opportunity for radical personal change, and that personal change can be positive. So the number one thing that I had to keep in my mind as I was going through everything was, these traumatic experiences are going to shape me, but I need to make sure that they shape me in a way that's positive. I think the second major principle was focus on what you want your experience to be. And by that I mean, I think that the common reaction to a traumatic experience is either to feel like very intense sorrow, resentment towards an event or a person that caused the trauma, and a third response sometimes too is like revenge, like a desire to go back and either harm the person or alter the event that made you feel this way to sort of, get equilibrium or whatever. And I'm not going to say that all of those responses are unreasonable, but I think that the most important response you can ever make out of something like this is a refocusing of what you want your experience to be. Practicing a super deep acceptance, being like, all right, this shit has happened to me. Like, I can't change it. It's over, it's done, it's happened, it's not gonna go away. Like, one of the things that I had to tell myself over and over and over as a kid was like, Dad is not coming back. Like, I had dreams relentlessly about like waking up in the middle of the night and like Dad was there and he'd escaped the car crash. And he was like, I'm sorry, like I've been trying to find you. And just like these horrifying nightmares, these fantasies of the person that I loved the most in the world coming back to me. Obviously it's understandable to have that as a kid, but the healing process does not actually begin until you practice a super deep acceptance of that. And looking forward into the future, the question has to be not, how do I feel about the situation? It has to be, what do I want my life to be like? Memory serves a specific purpose, and it's to help you identify past experiences and information from those experiences so that you can change something about your life right now, so that you can do something that will make your current experience better. But your experience is all you get. You can't go back, you can't change the past, you can't torture yourself thinking about how things could have been different forever. Nothing can be changed. The whole mindset shift needs to go from, I need to get back to the way that I was, to I need to radically change as a result of this experience, and welcoming that. The focus needs to be on your present experience and how that new experience that you have can be improved, rather than focusing on righting old wrongs or dwelling on past events. But the third idea, and this is the one that's like the most important to me, is live your life as if it is a story that you will one day tell other people, and make decisions based on the kind of story that you want to be able to tell. That philosophy is the most powerful way of approaching damage and trauma, which all of us will do at some point in our lives. All of us will do. It's inevitable. The reason why I was able to do what I did and survive everything from abject poverty to my father passing to homelessness to rejection from my family to all varieties of abuse that I didn't even mention nor do I want to go through and talk about in this video, is because at every step of the way, I used a traumatic experience to transform into a story that I could share with other people and gain momentum with. So my dad passing, for instance, was not just a blind tragedy that I just had to live with forever. It was a reason for me to take more responsibility as a man and emotionally mature and age myself faster than the people who were around me. The abject poverty I experienced was not just a blind, unfortunate circumstance. It was a condition that forced me to be much more scrupulous with my money and my time, and forced me to think a lot more carefully about how I was going to be successful because I had no safety net. Getting kicked out of my church was not a story of me being slighted by my closest allies and friends, although in a sense it was. It was much more than that. It was an opportunity for me to dramatically reshape my worldview and reprogram myself into the kind of person that I wanted to be. Like when I got kicked out of the church, when I left that, I had the opportunity to completely reprogram. And like I had no responsibilities to other people. I had no other connections. My whole social life started over. I didn't have my family. I didn't really have any other friends that crossed over. I remember like waking up in Centennial Park the first night after just like bawling my eyes out, But it's like, I knew at every level, I'm like, oh my God, I'm homeless now. I have no friends, no family, no money. I am as like ill and unsuccessful as I could be. And I remember going, you know what would be fucking awesome? You know what would be great? Is being able to look back on this exact moment in time, like right here under the tree, and tell it to a big audience someday. And be able to laugh and go like, oh my God, I can't believe that. So whenever shit would happen to me, like I got horribly sick at one point and had to use like an inhaler to get air into my lungs, like that I would carry around with me. I remember when one day it got stolen, I remember going like, I can't wait to tell people how I overcame this, you know? I can't wait to tell people how I survived all of this at once. The truth of the matter is, every step of the way, the trauma that I've experienced, the difficulty that I've experienced, has become a chapter of a story that I've woven together and told other people. It's made me incredibly resilient and powerful because I recognize every bad thing that happens to me is an opportunity for me to craft something greater than the bad experience itself. And I know that. I'm like, when something terrible has happened to me, and I've had plenty more happen to me since rising to the top of this so-called mountain, I've experienced plenty more tragedy beside that. And every time I do, I'm always like, I can't wait to tell people how I overcame this. Because at the end of the day, like, you are going to have a story about your past. And you want your story to be, man, I cracked under pressure. Like, I gave in. Like, my dad passed away and I just became lazy and unmotivated and I just got broken by that. Like, do I want that to be the story that I tell, or do I want it to be much more significant than that? Do I want it to be something that's grand? I guess this is sort of like an undergirding principle, but I'm gonna throw it in because it's also, this is just such a core idea to how I built my life. And this is probably gonna ruffle some feathers to say this, but you are responsible for your own life. Nobody is coming to make you successful, to make you wake up early, to make you take care of yourself, to make you disciplined. Nobody's coming for that. When something terrible happens to you, do not lose sight of the fact that you are the only person that can change the direction of your life. You are the only person that can steer the ship. Other people will have influence on you, and some people will have a huge influence on you, but you are the only person that can change the course of your life in the way that you want. If I had not believed that, if I had just thought, you know what, like, screw this, I'm not gonna make it, I've been so slighted, and I did feel that at times. I was like, how the fuck am I being treated this poorly? Why are things this unfair? But what brought me back at the end of the day was this realization that if I adopt this mentality that I am responsible for my life, and I own that, that's when I become unstoppable. Because once you become culpable for everything, you become capable of anything. When you own all of the things that happen in your life and you go, I'm gonna decide ahead of time to be responsible for this. I'm not gonna wait or think about the way that my upbringing was and blame things on my parents. I'm just gonna say, you know what? This is my life. This is my experience. I'm gonna make it the best that I can. And I'm not gonna worry about outside influence. I'm not gonna worry about what other people have to say. I'm just going to make decisions that are best for me. It's impossible to charter every chapter of my life. But I hope that this very brief overview of my life can give you some personal momentum and remind you that no matter how bad things are, there's always a way out, there's always a way to improve your situation, and there's always a way to grow through the worst things that have happened to you. Life can be brilliant and amazing and terrifying and beautiful, and it can be all of those things, and you can always feel so much more than you've ever felt. You can always connect and love so much more deeply than you've loved before. Life is not just a chance to get some of those things. Life is those things. Life is the ability to expand your consciousness and feel more and accomplish more and do more. I just hope that you don't allow yourself to be defined by your shitty experiences. And even better, if you can take your shitty experiences and you can become something great out of them, that's when you become unassailable. I would sometimes smile and be like, if I can't be stopped by homelessness, poverty, rejection, everything, if I can't be stopped by that, then I am truly unassailable. Let the trauma and the terrible things that happen to you become a part of the plot. We only get one run, as far as we know. You know, maybe we reincarnate, but like, we only get one life. Don't live your life deciding to not be the most responsible version of yourself that you could be. I have so much more to say, and I have so much more listening to do for all of you. But in the meantime, this has been my story, and this has been my first YouTube video. I love you all so much, and I'm so excited to build on this journey and get deeper into life and philosophy and self-improvement. I'll see you guys soon.